What's up guys, welcome to the channel. I am Stevie and today I am at the, as you can see right up there, the Canadian War Museum as a gigantic bus goes by. I'm at the Canadian War Museum here in on this horrendous day in Ontario, Canada. So we're gonna go inside, we're gonna check it out and have a look at the museum and see some of the exhibits, so stick around. That's one of two guns, 18-pounder Canadian artillery guns from World War I. It was actually presented to the city of Mons after World War I, and now they've got it here at the Canadian War Museum. The architecture in this museum is phenomenal. It's really amazing, to be honest. Just amazing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that is a Sherman Firefly, aka the one that the film Fury, that was the tank that was used. One of the most famous German tanks was the Panther, and as you can see there, that is a Panther with obviously the dreaded 88mm gun. Such a huge beast. I mean, look at the size of that. And that of course, along with the other Tiger, etc., was supposed to be the winning asset for the Germans in World War II. You know, and unfortunately they didn't, or fortunately, they didn't build them as many as they would have liked, and obviously, you know, they did make a slight dent, but obviously, you know, ultimately they lost the war. And the M3 Lee tank. Now, most of you guys would be used to seeing those in Africa. British forces uses them in Africa, or British and Canadian forces use them in Africa, Italy campaign, etc. So yeah, there you go, that's the M3 Lee. Now that is a Sherman, yes, but the Canadian version of that was called a Grizzly, and that is a Grizzly. The Sherman, aka the Tommy Cooker, that's what the Germans called it, because obviously it did have petrol engine, and when it got spanked by German armour, it would just go up like a petrol engine would, and cook the Tommies inside. That's why it was nicknamed the Tommy Cooker. I don't know if you can see that, but that is a Canadian Leopard 2 Mexus tank, as it's called. As you can see right there is one of the first Leopards, the original Leopard tanks. New generation of Leopard tanks. Obviously the Germans had Leopard tanks in World War II, but this is a new, or was the new version along with that one there. And obviously over time they upgraded them to different variants, Leopard 2A1, Leopard 2A2, and so on and so forth. And that one right there is what they used in Afghanistan. The Canadian forces were using that in Afghanistan. Great tanks, really good tanks. That right there is a chieftain tank, British made, around about 1960 onward, 120mm gun. Exported around the world by the British. Great tank. Still that gun there. Same sort of gun is used on the British Challenger 1 and the British Challenger 2 main battle tanks, still to this day. Russian BRDM, sorry, BRM1. Now, a lot of these will be getting used in Ukraine even now. Same sort of family as the BMP, well, it is from the BMP family. This is just a different variant of the BMP1, BRM. Russian. And that is of course the American made M109 howitzer artillery piece, mobile artillery. That right there is a Canadian built Ram Kangaroo armoured personnel carrier. Obviously it has the chassis of a Sherman, and obviously just without the turret. The turret has been removed, and it's obviously been used for armoured personnel carrier, along with other different variants of signals, ISR, you know, type variant. Really good bit of kit, and you know, that saw action throughout the whole of World War II. Good bit of kit. I must admit they've got some. They have a lot of kit, a lot of armour here in the Canadian War Museum, that's for sure. From all different eras of you know, Canadian history, armour history. I mean, look at this thing, Leopard 1 with the old mine clearance device on the front. Designed to clear minefields. I would imagine this was probably used in the former Yugoslavia at some point. We'll take a wander around here. That right there is an artillery piece. This was an anti-defense, anti-tank system. ADATS, as you can see right there. Air defense anti-tank system. Great looking vehicle. Phenomenal bit of kit, and that actually fired out. Let me just read it. What it says. The main armament is 8 MIM-146 dual-purpose missiles, so like it says, anti-tank or anti-air. It had a crew of 3 and a range of around 8 kilometers, and you can see it firing right there. Really good idea, but you know, think about it, you know, instead of employing 2 different vehicles, one for air, one for anti-armor, why not have one? See some of the guns from World War I and World War II, the old artillery pieces. Soviet 122mm gun captured, and then obviously you can see the old World War I style. German artillery piece. Going back even further, 13 pounders from World War I, a French 75mm. Wow, that was introduced in 1857. Jeez. Some more artillery pieces. Mortars, the light mortar. German, Austro-Hungarian forces would use these in from the trenches. Again, some more World War I era artillery pieces. Look at the size of that. Jeez. Whew. It was Germany's first 24cm artillery piece used in World War I. Look at this. Wow. Old cannons. Look at that. Just, jeez. Wow. Gee, 32-pounder smoothbore cannons and a 64-pounder smoothbore cannon. These were made roughly around 1877, 1878, so really bloody old. And obviously they have the Royal Seal on, as you can see there. Just amazing pieces of history in this museum. Field artillery tractor that would obviously pull that, make it easier, you know, when you transition from horses to motorized vehicles. That's what they use to pull one of those, or a different variant of the same sort of idea, really. Oh, Pack 30. 1 1/4 pounder naval gun. The U-boat deck gun. Look at that. Lethal bit of kit. Obviously the U-boats were not only lethal underwater, but if they were surfaced, you know, and they could use this, they were lethal with that as well. And that is just an 88mm. So that is an 88mm. Same sort of same caliber as a Tiger tank and a Panther, and of course the dreaded 88 anti-aircraft gun of World War II. More naval guns. 20mm, a 40mm double, Bofor's anti-aircraft gun. Wow, and a 2-pounder. 2-pounder, aka the pom-pom gun. Jeez, all Second World War. Jeez. Ooh. All German bits of artillery. Movable, mobile. Half track with a 30 cal and a 50 cal on the roof. The good old Bren carrier. Now if you've ever seen footage of the forces in Dunkirk, you would have seen quite a lot of those on the footage, the black and white footage back then. They were used heavily as Bren gun carriers. That's why they're called Bren carriers, because the Bren gun would be sticking out of there and it would be operated by a machine gunner. Look at that, the Goliath demolition vehicle, remote controlled. That was, if mine serves me right, the first remote control demolition vehicle or any remote control vehicle really of the war, of First World War. As it says there, this is the remote controlled mine developed by Germany during the Second World War. No, there was one round about First World War, I imagine. There you go, look at that. And it would be on a cable, as you can see there, and then, you know, they'd load that with explosives and then drive it into the enemy lines. 75 kilograms of explosives. The operator says the operator controlled it via a cable trailing from the vehicle. Both vehicle and its control cable were vulnerable to enemy fire. Yes. And the Germans built more than 7,500 of the Goliaths and used them against the Allied forces in World War II. So this is Harold Alexander's staff car, his actual staff car, and as you can see by the colour of it, denotes that it was used in the North Africa campaign and in Italy by Field Marshal Sir Harold Alexander of the Canadian Armed Forces. Covered over 290,000 kilometers. Wow, check it out. You can just imagine the general sat up at the back there with his binoculars watching the battlefield in North Africa against Rommel's forces, the Afrika Korps. Unbelievable. This is, as it says there, Lieutenant General H.D.G. Carrera's caravan. One of Canada's greatest wartime generals directed his forces from his command trailer, which is right there. That is crazy. Wow. I bet you that's seen some action in there, or seen some planning going on in there. That's phenomenal. I mean, it was obviously clearly pulled by something. Well, that's his command trailer right there. Potentially pulled by this. I mean, look at this. This is an old Ford pickup truck that's been turned into a half track. How awesome is that? Oh, look at that. Look at the back of the General's car. Or Field Marshal's car. And 5 stars on the back as well. Communications truck, wireless truck it was called back then, used for communications. Something a little bit more modern for you. Canadian truck, Jeep, light utility truck, and then something that was used by the forces in Iraq and Afghanistan in more recent times. That is, of course, the Nyala. Check that out. That is a submarine. Look at the size of that. Holy bridge layer. Wow. That's a midget submarine. This is a miniature German submarine used during the Second World War. The Germans developed the Mulch, or the Salamander class of midget submarines in 1944 to attack Allied shipping off the coast of Europe. Check it out. Jeez. Torpedo as well, look. So it was literally... Wow. Look at that bloody thing. Here we go, look. So the Great Eastern Ramp. Bridge layer, ramp layer for tanks, armoured vehicles. This would literally pull up. As you can see the mock-up here, you'll be able to see it. You'll see it pull up to a trench or a wall or, you know, whatever, river, and the guys would literally over the top. Oh. Fantastic idea. Cougar. More recent conflicts. And again, the Bren gun. So these were created for Vimy Ridge, sculptures for Vimy Ridge, and they were never placed onto Vimy Ridge. You can see they're held here at the museum. All the generational warfare of Canada, you know, and back then when it was, you know, part of Great Britain, the Commonwealth, part of Great Britain, right? Moving on to the First World War now. Canadian soldier from the First World War, battle dress. I mean, look at that. I mean, that's what we class as number 2s now, a number 2 dress. I just couldn't imagine going to war wearing that, you know. Jeez, look at all these guns. fantastic history of the beginnings of Canada, fighting against the First Nations, or some of the First Nations, and the long and honourable history of the First Nations in Canada and the Canadian Armed Forces. Famous red coats of the British Armed Forces back in 1812. A wooden cannon used by the Canadian rebels, loaded with buckshot, small pieces of lead and iron, 1837 to 1838. Wow. United States Army captain. United States Army cap worn by a raider, and medals as well. Check it out. Absolutely fascinating to see as a British guy coming to a Canadian museum, seeing this. You know, you don't really see this in the UK, which is really cool. Colonising British Columbia. Look at that. First Gatling gun. You used to turn it like that, and it would be loaded on the top there, and it would fire out the rounds. And it would cause absolute carnage. So the wars in South Africa, the Boer Wars and First World Wars. One of the most famous battles in Canadian history, Vimy Ridge. You know, a battle that put Canada on the map. You know, just unbelievable losses and unbelievable technology that was used at the time, and hard fought trench warfare that lost thousands of soldiers. Moving into the the Second World War. Probably one of the most iconic things that they've got at the museum is that right there. That is actually Hitler's, or one of Hitler's Mercedes-Benz cars. Check it out. Unbelievable to think that, you know, Hitler stood and sat right there, right in that car somewhere, sometime in Germany. Unbelievable, unbelievable. There he is right there, look. Wow, this was captured by the American troops after the war ended in '45 and brought to Canada. Just wow. A little unknown fact about Canada, and especially the prairie region of Alberta and Saskatchewan, etc., is the fact that the Air Commonwealth Training School was held here in back in, you know, during the war times, for the Second World War times, where pilots would come to Canada, be trained on certain planes, as you can see there. You know, they were trained on these planes to be able to then go over to the UK or to Europe and then fight against the Nazi war machine and Hurricanes and Spitfires and obviously ultimately bombers as well. And you know, it trained, wow, the plan trained more than 131,000 Allied airmen to fly Allied airframes and then fight against the Germans in World War II. Absolutely amazing. And right there is a U-boat torpedo, and trust me when I say this, that is huge, absolutely massive, and it was fired from one of those, from a U-boat. One of the only things that could defend against the U-boat fleet was a depth charge. I mean, these things took out, you know, hundreds of U-boats, and they were really effective, and that is an original depth charge and firing mechanism from a ship. Something else that they've got is an Enigma machine, original German Enigma machine. If you don't know what an Enigma machine is, this is what was used to encode all German communications during the war, and obviously, you know, that's why the Allies had such a hard time until they actually broke the code of finding the U-boats. And once they actually broken the code and captured a few U-boats and actually got hold of a few Enigma machines, they were able to capture able to break the code and obviously learn the Germans. The Germans had no idea that we'd actually caught it. We'd actually broke the code, but once we did, we were allowed to see all the German movements and everything like that. So really important we captured something like that. That there is a Wasp flamethrower. Absolutely lethal bit of kit, as you can see up there. It was lethal against troops, against bunkers, against anything that the Germans were hiding in. Really, absolutely lethal. There you go. You can see a Canadian airborne guy right there, and something that was also very lethal against Allied tanks was this bit of kit here. If you know what that is actually a Panzerfaust. Absolutely lethal. That right there is an original German Nazi flag. along with obviously World War II, World War One, etc. Here at the museum, they do have a Korean War exhibit, which is really cool. Shows you both sides, obviously the Korean side against the Canadian winter dress against the Korean winter dress. Really cool, actually. Good little exhibit. Then we move into the Cold War. Of course, Canada was heavily involved in the UN missions, Cyprus, the former Yugoslavia and stuff, and they've got a really good exhibit, as you can see. Cyprus, and then obviously we move into the former Yugoslavia and stuff. So.
The government to protect government officials and important people.
Part of the Berlin Wall. Awesome is that? Yeah, wow, they've got some really cool exhibits here, and obviously that is part of the Berlin Wall, an original part of the Berlin Wall, and obviously a very iconic symbol right there. Move into one of the most modern conflicts nowadays is the Afghanistan national I was going to say national war, the Afghanistan war, and as you can see there, that's you know, probably been taken out by an IED. They've got some really good, awesome exhibits actually. Just before my battery runs out, this is one of the special exhibits that the War Museum has on right now. This is all about World War II. And it's really cool. It's just got, you know, there's different stories of different people, all sorts of artifacts. I mean, stuff like that. You just see Hitler's a statue of, or what was on a statue of Hitler, his head, that was taken back by the Canadian troops. Just a lot of personal letters and everything like that. So yeah, it's really cool. Japanese flag, Japanese cap. Wow, really cool. So that, I hope you enjoyed that quick, literally whirlwind tour of the museum. of the Canadian War Museum here in Ottawa. Hopefully the battery stays on, but I'm going to say thanks very much for watching. If you did like the video, please remember to give it a thumbs up, and I'll leave a link down below to the Canadian War Museum's website. You guys can go check it out, times, prices, etc. It cost me $19 to get in, worth every penny of it. Really cool museum. Thanks very much for watching. If you did like it, please remember to give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, please remember to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.